Hello, my name is Jeff Lovejoy, and I'm a certified business coach. And today I am looking forward to talking to Paige Stanley. Paige is the owner of Paige, Arden, Stanley Law Firm. Welcome, Paige.
Hi, good to see you, Jeff.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having
Likewise.
me.
Likewise. Thanks. Hey, Paige, tell me a little bit about your practice.
Absolutely. So I've been in practice as a solo practitioner for a little over 10 years now. And my practice heavily focuses on the areas of estate planning, estate administration, and business law.
Got it. And Paige, who's the target market for you? Is it inside perimeter people? Is it young? Is it old? Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I do serve clients in multiple areas within around Metro Atlanta. My practice is near Decatur in a neighborhood called Kirkwood. But with COVID and being able to translate everything to a virtual platform, I actually have clients in Augusta, Muskogee County, and Columbus, and very rural areas in Georgia. So I'm able to serve anybody really in the state. I'm licensed in the state of Georgia. Yeah.
Got it. Excellent. Excellent. So are there demographics that are the sweet spot for you? You know,
That's a great
where is that sweet spot?
That's a great question. So, I was told years back that when you say who is your ideal client, should it be anybody? But honestly, in the areas of estate planning, it's staggering the statistics with the number of adult Americans who don't have a will or a trust. And even in with generations older Americans, the statistics that I read are, well over half of the population. So to answer your question in terms of the sweet spot, anybody who doesn't have a will and wants some protection in place and or a trust, there's pros and cons to having either that I go over in a detailed manner during a consultation. But I work with single individuals. I have clients as young as 18 and
Wow.
clients as old as in their early 80s. Because when somebody's legally an adult, he or she should get powers of attorney. And a lot of I'm the attorney for a lot of families and multiple generations. And so for my clients that have, the 18-year-olds that are going off to school, they will often contact me to get powers of attorney done.
Got it. Okay. So what I heard was virtually anybody could be a client, certainly
Really,
in Metro
yes.
Atlanta and in the surrounding states now that so much is virtual.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And okay. So, so I think we've already identified one impact that COVID has had on you, but that being the going virtual. But I imagine it's been also very difficult dealing with governments where you have to have that, where normally it's done face to face and paper is exchanged, and now that's not happening. What are the impacts COVID's imposed on you?
Yeah, well, COVID has had quite a bit of impact on my business. And to narrow it down to what you were asking, in terms of the governments, we're currently it's the third extension of a statewide judicial emergency that Georgia Supreme Court issued, and it's set to expire July the 12th unless it gets extended again. So basically what that means for attorneys, and in my area with probate and estate administration, I am able to, business is being conducted. The courts are open. It's limited. So we are doing a lot of FedExing of petitions to track them. We're using Zoom to administer virtual oaths. So things are taking a little bit longer in many counties. Some of the counties were already backed up earlier this year before COVID hit. So I'm just telling my clients, we just need to be patient in terms of the county. But yeah, our days of kind of going into the courts for things right now, that's largely suspended.
Got it. Got it. So so that's a significant change to the way you were doing business.
Yes.
So how have you dealt with that, the impact of those changes?
Yeah, I've actually implemented several things, Jeff. And I started March 16th to be precise. I've been completely operating the law firm as a virtual law practice. And with the exception of client signings, which we are doing in a safe, socially distant manner outside. I've had to add several platforms to the practice and online scheduling systems so clients can book themselves Definitely using Zoom for consultations and communications with out-of-state clients who are executors on estates, as well as the court system. And one of the things I've also been doing, also using electronic document signing whenever possible. Now that is not permitted for wills or trusts. There are some ways that we're able to do some remote signings, but then it's more of a lengthy conversation than we have time for. So lots of subscriptions have been added, and just honestly trying to break down any kind of barriers or obstacles for clients that really want to get some protection in place. I saw a huge uptick into the first quarter with a number of people that were, they were very panicked about the situation and wanting to get things in place. I'm not, going and chasing people down and instilling fear, but oftentimes an event, if somebody loses a loved one, or the birth of a child, those are triggering events that people oftentimes will reach out to an estate planning attorney. And I saw a lot more of an increase in that earlier this year.
Yeah, I bet you did. I would think with the numbers being what they are, especially in Georgia, that there'd be a lot of that fear around, we got to get something in place now.
Yes, a lot of clients from the CDC. I have clients that are on the front lines, essential workers.
Yeah, right.
And unfortunately, I have received inquiries from people who've lost loved ones due to battles with COVID. So it is definitely here. And, again, the takeaway that I want to give people is, estate planning is not for the wealthy. If somebody has a bank account, they have an estate, and don't let Georgia's law determine where your assets go. And, it's not a one size fits all approach. Been doing this, practicing law 17 years and having this practice for 11. And, it's nothing really surprises me anymore. But I tell people, let's just get a plan in place.
Because if they don't have a plan in place, then the state dictates how the assets are distributed?
Yeah, Georgia's law regarding intestacy, it's Title 53 of the Georgia Code, and I'll try not to nerd out on you as an
Okay,
attorney.
thank you.
But basically, that would determine who one's heirs at law are. And if somebody passes away without a will, they are considered to have passed away intestate. And so we look to the Georgia Code and determine, was this individual married? Did this individual have minor children? If the answers to those are no, we just kind of go further down the equation with siblings, parents, what have you. And oftentimes that's not really what people want. And so if you have beneficiaries that you designate either in a will or a trust, that can offer the protection. And then, of course, I tell people as part of the package, getting these powers of attorney so that in the event you can't make your own decisions, that somebody can make those decisions on your behalf. Those are not end-of-life documents. Those are documents if you are, incapacitated or otherwise unavailable. Yep. There's several different triggers for that. But that kind of, comprises a basic estate plan. And, when people don't have those documents in place, then we are having to petition a court to have somebody appointed over an incapacitated adult. And those petitions are lengthy, it's expensive. And now, of course, with COVID, these in-person hearings are not going to be occurring like they were.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like just huge impacts on you. Some folks haven't been impacted much. It sounds like you've been impacted significantly.
Yeah, but I will say I feel fortunate because, I still definitely have a business. I started this business during the Great Recession, and, here we are again. So,
right.
The takeaway for me is, I was in a home-based business before this all started. So I just had some things I needed to add in order to pivot to meet the needs of my clients.
Got it. Okay. All right. Paige, it said that smart people learn from their mistakes and wise people learn from the mistakes of others.
Yes.
What can you pass along, advice can you pass along to anybody that's listening to this as to lessons learned that you will make sure to avoid going forward?
Absolutely. I can think of a couple. The first one, in terms of some of the processes that I had internally with client appointments, scheduling, requiring intake paperwork before the consultation, I realized with COVID that the least amount of obstacles that I could prevent, in other words, that I could have for a client or a potential client to get to speak with me. Because people right now, they've had to homeschool, people have lost their jobs. I don't want for an individual to talk to me as his or her lawyer to have, oh gosh, I've got 15 pages of paperwork to figure out. I got to figure out all these answers. I've got to do it. And so, when people were sitting in my office before, it was kind of a different dynamic. And so what I realized from, the mistakes I kind of was making early on was still trying to have those processes in place. And realizing, let's just kind of break down some of those barriers or the walls. I always told people, do the best you can. I know you're going to have questions. That's why you're talking with a lawyer. But now it's, most of the time they're getting what they can filled out. They've got their homework, and it's not, it's business as usual, but things are just going a little bit slower. So that was something I was trying to hold on to, some of those old processes. And what I realized was this isn't working for people.
Got it.
They're having to schedule, they're having to learn Zoom, figure out how to pay remotely. So what can I do to listen to them to make their lives easier? So they're like, all right, Paige is going to help us now. We're good. We're going to get a plan in place. And I think that's worked better, and it's not making me pull my hair out with all the administrative.
Yeah, good for you. So is that something that you think might carry forward once we're in recovery and beyond?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I also think the fact that we can now have I miss the in-person meetings, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the fact that I can serve people in Augusta that don't have to drive, 2 hours to meet with me. So there are definitely things from this pandemic that I am going to take forward. I've never been a fan of unnecessary meetings. I was at a large firm before I started this practice, and I always tell my clients, I'll meet you in whatever method you want. If you prefer email, if you prefer the phone, if you prefer Zoom. And so now, I think that a lot of this stuff is going to transfer over, because I think we're going to be in this for a while, for sure.
Right.
Hate to say it, but it seems that way.
Well, that's a great lesson, because a lot of business owners are doing just the opposite, because they're moving teams into a virtual world, and they've got to make sure that they have processes in place so that things don't fall between the cracks with people being out of the office. Yours is a little different dynamic in that you're kind of going the opposite way, because it's you and you don't have a big team that you got to worry about coordinating who's doing what.
That's right. I have, impartial witnesses that help for signings, and I have an outsourced bookkeeper and, outsourced information technology. And I was in the process of hiring, and now I've got to figure out, during this situation, how best to, support my clients.
Yep. So you said you had a couple thoughts. Was there another lesson learned that you'd like to share?
Well, I think the first one was, just as I mentioned, just breaking down the barriers. But the other one was just kind of the mistake or thinking that all meetings need to happen, in person, and that we really can be a lot more efficient in many regards. And it helps clients out if they're not, even when traffic returns, they're not having to drive over from Midtown that could take, 45 minutes.
Right. Yeah, that's one I'm recognizing how much time I used to spend in the car going to and from client appointments, that now I'm in the office. It's like, where did all this extra time come from?
Right.
So it's that's been a big eye opener for me. So, so Paige, what inspires you these days?
I've actually been doing a lot of reading, Jeff.
Good for you.
So there was a book called The Big Leap that I just finished. The author is Gay Hendricks, and it was talking about upper limit thinking. And, I found that to be pretty interesting. And I started a Michael Hyatt book. So I guess to answer your question, I'm pretty avid reader, and certainly with this situation and having a little bit more time in the evenings, I'm devouring more books, and those are inspiring, just reading what other business owners are doing and how best we can serve our clients. And at the end of the day, that's why we're here.
Yeah, good for you for taking up doing the reading and kind of learning new ideas and new ways to think. And it makes a huge difference because a lot of your competitors, I would believe, probably aren't. And so
Yeah,
you just,
I'm not sure what they're doing. I just know that this is what, and
right.
I probably should do a little bit more research on what they're doing, because I do think collaboration really does help. I have several attorneys that we talk on a regular basis and say, well, what are you doing now that the governor has permitted remote notarization and witnessing of documents? So we can, again, kind of nerding out, but just bouncing ideas off each other that really nobody wants to hear about but the lawyers.
Got it. All right. So Paige, how can people reach you if they want to talk to you?
Absolutely. The best way to reach me is honestly to send me an email. And my email address is paige@stanleylawoffice.com. So it's Paige, Paige, at Stanley lawoffice.com. And that will generate an auto response, but you have my word, I will respond to you. It does sometimes take me a little bit longer, but it will have links to the resources, intake questionnaires, and to get on my calendar. The phone is kind of less desirable just due to the volume. And I found that I'm most efficient when I'm responding and setting up those meetings that way, and then we can get on the phone.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing all those thoughts. I thought there were some great takeaways from that. The point about making things simpler for your clients, or in the case of buyers, looking at what you can do to help them make things easier for them is a great lesson. It's so often that we get caught up in what's best for me and how do I do things better here, which is important, but it's all got to be directed towards the buyer, and a lot of times business owners lose sight of that.
You're absolutely right. And I get it. Nobody wants to think about death. I get that nobody really wants to have a discussion with an estate planning attorney. So if I can make that process easier for people, I'm going to do everything in my power, because it is largely an area where people do tend to procrastinate unless there's some event that has brought them to me.
Got it.
And and if people look at Google and reviews, it really isn't daunting. Like, I promise that we can get you taken care of, and you'll be like, oh, that was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. So.
Well, thanks for your time, Paige, and I really value your inputs. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
All
Have
the
a
best.
good one.
Yeah, you as well. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jeff.